You live among differences. You approve of some, resist others, and call this discernment. Yet a doubt appears. If God is one, why does experience feel divided? Ibn Arabi enters here. He argued that difference is not the opposite of unity, but its articulation. The divine does not hide behind forms. He discloses himself as form. Each encounter reveals an aspect that cannot appear elsewhere in the same way. Recognition, then, is not a new belief. It is a new way of reading what you already meet. You realize that judgment locks perception into preference, while witnessing releases it into understanding. The question sharpens. If every meeting is disclosure, what in you prevents recognition? Habit, fear, or the need for control? Ibn Arabi lived in 12th century Andalusia, where philosophy, law, and direct realization competed for authority. He used the clarity of reason, respected the discipline of law, and insisted on unveiling as the final criterion. For him, existence itself is theophany, divine self-disclosure. God is not reached by argument or sensation, but recognized through what already stands before awareness. His claim is metaphysical, not poetic. Plurality is the mode by which unity becomes knowable. To read the world correctly is to see attributes in motion. The task is practical. Train perception to register disclosure rather than defend preference. You organize life with labels. Useful, useless. Safe, unsafe. Sacred, ordinary. The mind sorts to function. Then it confuses sorting with truth. Ibn Arabi warned that the intellect divides what is indivisible and then defends the division as reality. The moment you call one domain holy and another secular, you instruct attention to overlook half of what it seeks. Division is not only conceptual, it is ethical. You grant regard to what fits expectation and withdraw regard from what resists it. This practice produces a world that reflects your boundaries rather than reality's fullness. If perception is trained by opposition, how could it register unity? What else might be visible if the sorting mechanism paused and relation, rather than contrast, became the first question? Ibn Arabi explained that every existent is a locus for one or more divine names. Some names reveal nearness through tenderness. Others reveal measure through rigor. No single form completes the disclosure. Each form contributes what others cannot. The mistake is to seek God in vague abstraction while neglecting concrete appearance. Refusal of any form is refusal of the name disclosed there. Recognition is not agreement with behavior. It is awareness of source. The standard shifts from liking to understanding. If each form gives unique access to a name, what practice prevents you from discarding the very key you need to know the whole? You assume you see what is there. In fact, you mostly see the range of your own readiness. Ibn Arabi taught that disclosure matches capacity. The real addresses you in the language you can hear. When the heart narrows, reality appears fragmented. When it widens, relations become legible. Perception is participation, not distant observation. You are not outside the scene. Your state co-creates what you can register. This is not relativism. It is responsibility. If every sight is partially shaped by the seer, then training the seer changes the world encountered. The inquiry turns inward. What habits restrict capacity, and what disciplines increase it so that difference can be held without collapse? You meet resistance, persons who contradict your views or expose your limits. The usual response is defense. Ibn Arabi reframes such meetings as examinations. The question is not, how do I win? But what name is speaking to me through this difference? Sometimes it is justice demanding balance. Sometimes it is wisdom asking for patience. Sometimes it is majesty setting a boundary. Recognition does not excuse harm. It extracts instruction without denial. If the real also approaches you through what you oppose, what capacity grows when you remain with the lesson rather than react to the threat? For Ibn Arabi, the divine names structure reality. Mercy and majesty, giving and withholding, subtlety and manifestness. Each name seeks expression. When one predominates here, its counterbalance appears there. Your judgments often arise from siding with one name against its complement. Yet knowledge requires the pair. Mercy without measure dissolves. Measure without mercy hardens. The world remains coherent because names distribute and balance. You begin to read situations by asking which names are active and how they relate. This replaces complaint with interpretation. If you learn to hear the names moving within events, how would choice change and how would responsibility deepen? The central obstacle is not the world. It is the self-image that insists on being the standard. Ibn Arabi observed that the ego sees only itself. It projects its measures and calls the result truth. To recognize God in every face, the personal center must fall silent. Silence here is not passivity. It is a refusal to intervene with premature judgment. Once the personal claim relaxes, perception gains range. You are no longer evaluating value. You are registering disclosure. If you are not the standard, what becomes the new basis for response? And how does action change when it is sourced from recognition rather than from preference? Insight can become a new possession. I see unity can harden into superiority. Ibn Arabi warned against spiritual appropriation. True recognition carries no badge. It does not claim special status or exclusive access. It expresses as humility and precision. Meet each face with the question, what is being shown and what is being asked of me now? Sometimes the answer is receptivity. Sometimes it is boundary. Sometimes it is repair. The criterion is fidelity to the name recognized, not the protection of an image of oneself as advanced. If recognition includes all and excludes none, what place remains for the vanity that divides the very unity it announces? As practice matures, the distinction between seer, seen, and seeing loosens. Ibn Arabi called this the unity of witnessing. You are not erasing difference. You are perceiving its ground. Relations replace separations. The face before you and the awareness in you participate in one act sourced from the same reality. Decision becomes clearer because it is made within the single field, not from a private center. You still discern, but without rivalry. If perception is one motion through many points, who remains to divide what is already joined? And what happens to fear when it lacks an opposite to defend against? You turn the insight into steps. First, pause before labeling. Second, name the likely active attributes: generosity, justice, restraint, patience. Third, ask what fidelity to those names requires now. Fourth, act without turning the action into identity. Fifth, review the outcome as information rather than a verdict. This is not technique for politeness. It is training for accuracy. It prevents dismissal of disclosures that arrive in unwelcome forms. Over time, this practice dissolves reflexive division and replaces it with steady regard. If you live this sequence consistently, how many conflicts would shift from threat to instruction, and how much of reality would become newly available. You return to the first question. If God is one, why do you experience separation? After inquiry, the answer is sober. Separation is how unity becomes readable to finite perception. It is not a flaw. It is a curriculum. Ibn Arabi's lesson is simple and demanding. Read every face as disclosure. Respond to the name you find, and refuse ownership of the insight. Diversity is the language through which the One speaks. When this is clear, perception becomes devotion by accuracy, not by sentiment. You do not abandon discernment. You purify it. You do not dissolve into abstraction. You act with exactness. To recognize God in every face is to meet each moment as a conversation